Hello, 5th grade, and welcome to another drawing with Mr. McGill. Today we're going to be working on creating space inside a piece of work. When we talk about space, we're not talking about outer space, but rather the illusion that there is a foreground, middle ground, and background of our picture. You can see in this picture that we're going to use some things like overlap. We're also going to use things like value, so creating a blended value in our background. In order to do this picture, you're just going to need a pencil and then some basic colors, whether they're crayons or colored pencil. To get started, you want to take your paper and make sure that you're working horizontally, so going left to right rather than up and down. In order to start this picture, as far as the drawing is concerned, we're just going to make a few lines across our paper horizontally. And they should be organic. They don't have to be made with a ruler, and you want to try and make them close to what I'm doing here. So I'm going to have one that comes and kind of moves like this. I'm going to have another that comes and goes up in the opposite direction. And then I'm going to have one that starts halfway through this line that goes like that. Notice none of them are perfectly straight. They're kind of flowy and organic, and they're not a wavy line either, okay? The picture is looking at a forest of birch trees in the winter time. You can tell because the ground is white. And we're not really focused on the tops of the trees. Okay, birch trees don't tend to have a whole lot of foliage, and we're really looking at all of these trees about halfway up the tree itself. So now what I want you to do is don't worry about erasing anything just at this point, but really focus on making trees. Before we start making them, let's think. Trees are widest at their base, at the bottom of the tree. So our tree should not be a straight line that just goes up, and it should definitely not be going in a V, but rather the opposite. So almost like a letter A, but very, very gradually. So the first thing I'm going to do is think about the foreground. What's closest to us? And I want you to take and just make a line for a tree that goes right up the side of the paper. This tree is closest to us, and we only see a fraction of it because the rest of it is off of the paper. Our next tree is going to be right here, and we're going to make it rather wide at the bottom. So I'm going to go up, and then up, so notice how I've made these lines darker. That's what you should do as well. And then we can tell the difference between the ones that we want to keep and the ones that we want to erase. So now that we have them in the foreground, this closest section of snow here, we're going to make a few in the middle ground, okay? So now I'm going to start here and go up. And I'm not going to make it quite as big as this one. So I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller. And again, you can see it's wider here than it is up there. I'm going to make another tree in the same plot of ground. So it'll be the same size as this one, but I'm going to make it right here. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 trees, and we're going to make just a couple more. So I'm going to make one back here. And you can see this time, this one's going to be just a bit smaller. So it's smaller than these two here. And you know that because you can measure it with your hands. And we are doing that because we know that things that are further away seem to be smaller. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean they are smaller, but visually they appear smaller. Okay, and that's called linear perspective. Okay, so things in the distance appear smaller than they are closer. Now, we don't know where this plot of land goes, but it goes down behind this one here. So we can still put a tree here, but we're going to make it this size, and visually that will tell the viewer that this tree is on the other side of this hill. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trees. If you want to add more, you can. Just be aware that if you make one in front of another, the tree behind it needs to be erased, okay? So what we're going to do now is erase parts of the land that we started that go behind our trees. So to start, we'll start with the first tree, and we know that if this tree is in front, this little line for the land is not visible, nor is this one here. We also have another line here, and here, and here. So this second tree that we drew had 3 lines that we need to erase on the inside. With our second set of trees, we have one here, and we also have one here. Okay, no need to erase this one because it actually goes in front. This tree goes down behind that hill, okay? We have a line here, and then we also have one here. Okay, if you can't get them completely erased, no big deal. We'll be putting some texture on those trees that I'm sure will draw the viewer's eye away from what we have to do. Now, in this picture, I used black and purple and blue. You can just use black and blue. You can use just black and purple. It is entirely up to you. The idea here is that we want to get lighter. Black is the darkest color, so we're going to try and move gradually to a lighter version of whatever color that we're using, okay? You can also put mountains in the background. So for instance, I might want to draw something like this. And that's okay too. And then I'll only have to work with this much in the background. That's entirely up to you, okay? You can still fill these in black because at nighttime, mountains don't really have color. So it won't be as much blending that you're doing here. In fact, it'll be more of a defined black shape, and that's okay too. So let's get on to the coloring part. The coloring part for this, like I said, you can use colored pencil, you can use crayon, whatever you've got at home. Unfortunately, marker is not really that easy to blend with, so I would steer clear of that. What we're going to do first is make sure that you have the colors that you want to use. Okay, so I have black here, I have blue, and I have purple. Okay, and I'm going to use this purple here. Actually, I'm going to use this one. Okay, so I've chosen colors that are next to one another on the color wheel. So blue and purple, and then black is just a darker version of any of the colors that you use. Okay, like I said, you could just use black and blue. It's up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work in between the trees, and I'm going to really push on the black. Okay, I want to make sure that it's nice and dark. So I'm using crayon. You could do this with a colored pencil. And if you're doing that with a colored pencil, you're pushing very, very heavily from where the ground or the snowy ground is and going up in between the trees. Okay, I'm not going to go all the way up to the top. I'm only going to stick towards the edge of the snow, because what we're going to have in our sky, even though we can't see it, is a light source. For example, the moon. you can see right about the same spot is where I'm stopping with my black, and that is for the purpose of blending. So I'm going very, very dark, pushing very hard. If you have pastels at home, this might be easier for you because you can blend those together. All right, but the idea here is that you can do this with a lot of different materials, and that's what this lesson is mostly about. Not only creating space, but also using value. So I'm not following the lines for my mountain. I'm going to do the picture just as I had shown you the first time. So like this. And so now what we're going to do is just continue on with the black here and here. So what I'm going to do now is very lightly put some black. You can see the different values between this and that. So value is the lightness or darkness of a color. So for this piece here, I'm using dark black, and then I'm going to use kind of a gray. So I'm just not pushing as hard. And that's going to help when I add my other colors to kind of blend them with the black. Okay. So now that I have those, I'm going to go in with my next color, which is purple. And I'm going to go right over my black. So this should make a really dark purple. And I can even go above that a little bit. So I'm going just above that black, but not a whole lot. And you're going to find that you may have less space in some areas than you do in others, and that's okay, especially if you've made your line go up at more of a pitch than mine did, okay? So now I'm going to take the blue and I'm going to go over the purple. And also up into that last bit of white space. So when you blend colors, you always have to go over the previous color. If you just sit and put them side by side, it's not going to be as good of a blend, okay? And then of course it also depends on what colors and what media, right, whether it's crayon or colored pencil or pastel, you're using. Okay, but to put the colors together over one another will help them blend much better. So now that I have that done, I might go down inside my black. Okay, you don't think possibly looking at this that it's doing much, but it does fill in that any of that space, that waxy space that's left between your crayon, or the white space I should say, and helps to blue out that black. Okay, so don't worry too much if your paper's got a lot of stuff on it. I'm just trying to shape mine up for the purpose of this, but we will be adding some texture to the trees. So you do want to go back, and these crayons are a little bit bulky, so I'm going to establish the line of my trees again. And now what we're gonna do is work on the trees themselves. Birch trees have these black kind of rings that go around them, but they're not all uniform. So when you do this part, you wanna kind of work more randomly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put in a couple here and then move over and do a couple there. Make one right in the middle and then make a couple come from the edge and then maybe some over here, okay? Some can be darker, some can be lighter. Okay, you kind of see mine are almost like smiley faces. And the reason why is that really helps reinforce the cylindrical quality of the tree, okay? Now I'm gonna go back over the snow drifts just so that we can see them a little bit better. Okay, what you don't want to do is just do lines, okay? Kind of make little tiny marks. Make some under one another. Okay, if you just go down and make it like candy cane striped, it's not going to be very believable, okay? We want to really try and mimic birch bark. Okay, you can also Google it. There's nothing wrong with going on Google and really looking up what a birch tree looks like, especially the bark. So we're almost done this picture. I really like the fact that it looks like it's getting lighter because now it's kind of like the moon is up here somewhere and we're getting the light that's slowly getting darker and darker. So I like to envision that my moon is here. Wherever you choose to put your moon, if it's here or here, I wouldn't put it right above you, okay? Because we're gonna add some shadows. So you can see here that my shadows are all going in the same direction. And if the shadow is falling here, it must mean that the moon is somewhere here because it's on the other side of the tree, casting the shadow this way. If it was right above, we would draw all of our lines straight and they'd be straight like our trees, and that's really not a good compositional choice, okay? So what we're gonna do is, we don't have to make dark shadows, so you can use your pencil if you want. You can use your crayon, but students tend to get much too dark too quickly, so you may want to use that towards the end. So to do this, what I'm going to do is just choose, again, where my moon is going to be. So I'm going to say it's the corner of the paper. So I'm going to work straight out from this tree. Doesn't have to be defined, like a perfectly straight shadow. You can make it that way if you want. If it runs into other trees, okay, don't worry about it. You can make it continue, or you can just assume that maybe it's on that side of the tree we don't see. I'm gonna have another one here, and then another one there. Okay, so you can see that I drew the lines. If that helps you, you can also do that. All right, and then what I'm gonna do is just come in and make it dark. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep the base of the tree. And there you have it. Birch trees at night. Again, make sure that you guys, if you need help, follow along with the video, pause it when necessary, and you can also message me in Teams. I can't wait to see what you guys create, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a good one.